Not really, buddy. No, but I'll go over Deion Walker just for a minute. We'll let Ben try and figure this out. But overall, Deion Walker, I think what Ben is trying to say is that going into the season, based on his sophomore year, um, Deion Walker was only ascending. I think he was in most top 20s. He was in my top 25 of players. He's a ginormous human being. He has the size, the frame, the length. He is 6'7", truly 6'7", and there are only four players, according to Mock Draftable, since 1999. There's only four defensive tackles who were taller than him, and one of them is Calais Campbell. Uh, like the pros physically, he's physically overwhelming to deal with how big he is. 6'7", 340, monster hands, 34-inch arms, I think. He's truly insane, and he has the true footwork, and it makes him you've seen this quote, a dancing bear at times, and he can be in the right spot and just make explosives in the backfield, both sacks and run stops. But the the cons with me, like I'm totally with Ben here, where I don't have him ranked because I like to put myself in the GM shoes when I'm doing this, and Deion Walker certainly would not be on my board personally. Like I just don't think the value will meet for a guy like Deion Walker that I wouldn't want to take that risk. And the cons were pretty simple. He had great ascending production sophomore year, 50 plus pressures, 29 run stops. Then this season as a true junior, had worse production than his freshman year, and less pressures, less run stops, worse missed tackle rate, and all of that gets thrown out. And it's like, oh well, he had this back injury. He had this fractured back injury. He has a 3.75 raw athletic score, or RAS, which is boosted to elite. Like he has elite size, so his size and overall like weight and height boost that number even from a 3.75. And another like other little things, he went to the All-Star event, he went to the Senior Bowl, didn't show out, I should say. He showed up, but he didn't show out in a way that a
He's
top
bad.
20 player does. And yeah, overall technique issues all over the tape. Like the pad level is uncomfortably high for me. Like because you are huge, you need to figure that out. He doesn't have a plan that if it doesn't result in going right through you, then it doesn't work. He just doesn't get to the passer, and then the hand fighting outside of how consistency issue for me. But yeah, man, Deion Walker not ranked for me, but I assume that was all what you were gonna say, Ben. I think you're back.
Yes, yeah, I switched over to hotspot, so hopefully that hopefully that fixes the issue here. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you said everything that I would have said. Just very oddly built. Didn't really know how to use that size. Again, technique issues. Got washed out of plays way more than what you would like for a guy as big as he is. And then again, you touched on that production just absolutely dropping. That being said, if I would not be shocked if he went to the right team in like round four per se,
Mm-hmm.
and it developed into an actual good player. That's kind of where I'm at with him. And then the other guy I thought was worth talking about outside of my ranked guys is one Tonka Hemingway. Uh, First off, an elite football name. It does not get better than the name Tonka Hemingway. I absolutely loved him. I've found his tape just such a joy to watch. And I didn't really even know who he was before watching another guy that I have on this list and another guy I have on the other list we're going through today. But man, he is fun. He's an athletic three tech. He's going to be, as Matt's name kind of indicates, he's going to be a nice three tech penetrator. He's athletic. He's long. He's very active and has strong punches. Really knows how to use his bull rush to get underneath people's pads. Sometimes doesn't always convert those pressures into sacks, but gets there. And then when he doesn't get there, he does a good job of getting his hands up and getting the pass deflections. And that is a big, big plus for me. really the areas of concern for me is he's a bit light in the pants. He's only 284 pounds. He's on the older end of prospects, but is not the oldest guy that we will be talking about today in the defensive tackle group, let alone the linebacker group. But he's 24 years old. He struggles shedding blocks in the run game when an offensive lineman can actually get their hands in his pads. And like I said, just due to his size, I think he is strictly only a 3-tech one-gapper. You're never going to ask him to play the A-gap. I think you could probably kick him outside to be a 3-4 defensive tackle. But there you're kind of blurring some lines because I don't know if he has the bend to do that. But I think he's going to be a very fun off-speed kind of pitch defensive tackle. Someone I comped him to was Mario Ajamo, and that's what his game reminded me so heavy of while watching him. And again, he was just a treat to watch. If you guys haven't watched him, go out and even just look up his highlights. He's a whole lot of fun.
That's awesome. You were here for Tonka Hemingway before he's a superstar. All right, Ben was on it first.
Calling my shot. Do you just want to run through like your 13-5 just like really quickly, or your 13-8? I get 13-9, then we'll start at 8.
Yeah, I hope that we don't like cross paths too much early, but number 12, Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee. He's a fun thought experiment because like what if you added 45 to 50 pounds of James Pierce? You get it. Like that's kind of what it is. The size, the frame, all with twitch and athletic quickness. The get off and the acceleration is his calling card. Gets quick penetration due to this. Could see him in a looper, in a stunt roll kind of thing. He doesn't anchor well for like the cons. He doesn't anchor well for a sub 300-pound guy. Like he's not going to be for everyone. Will get overmatched in the run game due to the lower body strength concerns and gets easily swallowed out of plays. And then the last thing, like he's a weird older rotational player at Tennessee. He just turned 23. He averaged 17 snaps a game this past season in 2024. Had a 5-year true college career and finished with less than 1,000 total snaps. Just a one of a kind player. But man, just like Hemingway, you talked about, like there is a fun twitch and athletic ability off the ball that I was like, all right, if we can find a place, I can see it. And I think he probably falls into the same place as like Deion Walker for me, where I have Deion Walker off my board because I just can't get there. Some people are going to have Norman Lott the same way, and I would completely understand. 11. Did you have Norman Lott?
Really quickly, yeah. I actually had Omar Norman Lott all the way up at 7. If you weren't able to tell based off of me liking Tonka Hemingway and now me having Omar Norman Lott at 7, I do have a type. Again, you said it. I think he's going to be a very good pass rushing, again, that off-speed defensive tackle that's going to come in on third downs and be a very good pass rusher. Again, I think he has a very quick get-off, that strong motor. I think he has stronger hands than what people want to give him credit for. Like you said, he's quick.
The hands were good, but the technique was awkward.
He likes to fire out wide a lot, which I didn't like. Again, he fired his hands out like way too wide, almost at the shoulder pads rather than the chest.
Yeah.
He does have a deep bag of pass rushing moves. He showed a very good spin move, a cross chop, the dip and rip. And for a guy his size, I thought he had really good contact balance. And then kind of the last positive I have for him is he kind of plays with his hair on fire. He's just a crazy maniac. That being said, the first con I have for him is he plays with his hair on fire like a crazy maniac. At times it can turn out very, very well for him. And then there are times where it just is absolutely miserable. And then, as you said, I think he's smaller. He lacks a lot of those rundown snaps, which has a lot to say about his ability to actually do that. And then again, just bad technique, both in the hands and feet. So we're in agreement on there, but I think I might value a little bit more of that pass rushing upside he offers than you.
Yeah, no, I another thing with him was he was a fun watch as a pass rusher because like the way he created the way I tried to sum up, he creates multiple like ways of entry to the quarterback. Like the way he
Mm-hmm.
sets up as a D tackle rather than in like because he has the bendiness of an edge, I believe that like he can bend around through that B gap between the tackle and the guard or go kind of inside to the center in like a stunt fashion. So he was a fascinating watch in the way he got to the quarterback, and it was just it made me think that like is there a conditioning problem playing 17 snaps? Is it just a Tennessee thing that like we just have to throw it out? Which I'm completely at that point with it where Tennessee stuff is just you throw it out like get the good players there and they'll figure it out. But yeah, man, it's he's a fascinating player. I did not expect you to have him that high. That's awesome. Um, but 11, I have Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon. This one is kind of like my, I don't want to say like hotter take, but I don't think a lot of people have him up this high. I think he's going to be a guy that goes into the third round ish, something like that. Just think Colin Saunders with the Saints because that's what he is. He is a super athletic, stumpy player. He is that is the way I can put. He flashes the point of attack power in the pass game with his bull rush. Um, the short and stumpy stature gives him the leverage in the pad level battle, and he consistently will get into and under you. Just he will get into you in a real way, and has that motor to get to the quarterback. The cons, I mean, limited length and height, just like Colin Saunders. He's not disciplined or an intelligent defender as of now, which is a problem because he's an older player, so you would want him to have that kind of in his arsenal already. He'll negate gaps in the run game, leading to explosive potential conditioning problem. Big man carries a lot of possible bad weight mixed with a history of lower body injuries. But overall, I think there's a world where someone admires his skill set and just wants him on the field. So 11, Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah. He was a guy I did not have on my list, which is good. I'm scared that you're just gonna like name off of like my top like 8 to 4, and you just like rattle them all off at that point. But yeah, you can keep going.
Yeah, number 10, I have Jordan Phillips out of Maryland. He was easy. He's young and he's extremely talented. Point of attack strength in the run game, has real knockback to it. He can be in control with multiple blockers as he's moving downhill into the run lanes. Good discipline in the run game, doesn't get comboed out of blocks too often, has the natural feel of moving his eyes and hands to where the ball is going to take him. He has the quickness and athleticism to frame out his body and become a productive pass rusher at the next level. And he's got some moves, flashes a swim move and a very fun spin move when you first notice it and watch him do it. It's
Mm.
hilarious to watch a 300-pound man try and spin away from a guard. The cons, very short arms. Like, so it's not quite Kalijah Cansey sub 31-inch arms, but 31 and one half inch arms is kind of pushing it to the closest part you can be. For him, the get off needs tooling. He's a very wide stance holder at the line of scrimmage, and it limits his get off for me. Like you can see if you get tighter, you'll explode better, much better. Uh, he'll figure it out. Leg drive affects the bull rush, needs to be ironed out long term. Shed timing and choosing his opportunities will need to get better in the run game. And the same thing, like in college, you and I had the same amount of sacks as Jordan Phillips did at Maryland. So again, like it's the production issue is I have it in here, not ideal exclamation point. So yeah, you would love to have a guy have more sacks, but that's 10 for me. Let's see if we have the same 9 player here. Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M. I have him his pros long, rangy, explosive one gapper. Explosion and acceleration off the ball is his calling card. Strong in the hands, shows it off in the run game when he creates extension with his frame, just getting off the ball. Flash's go-to moves with the swim and the hump move being the most prolific. Cons, his hand technique, they may be strong, but most of the time doesn't know what he's doing. The plan stuff. He'll get swallowed up in the run game due to poor pad level too often. Leg drive on the bull rush is concerning for how much bigger he got and at A&M and his explosion as an athlete off the ball. Like you want to show more in the legs, and then like so he's a weird player. So I have this in my cons, but I kind of just wanted it as like a write up to show up. Production overall in 24 was lackluster. He mustered up 21 total pressures and 19 run stops per PFF, but again, put on weight to fit the scheme as a 3-tech with Stewart and Scorton out on the edge. This is what was most fascinating to me. So his snap splits in 2022, he had 257 snaps outside the tackle's shoulder. So as a pure edge, Shamar Turner in 2022, 250 plus snaps as a pure edge. 2023 had 261. In 2024, he had 12. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they just believed they could put him inside as a 3-tech and it would just figure out. But, like, he is a very raw defensive tackle where the edge stuff, the one-gapping stuff, I am intrigued by. And I can get into the top 80 picks with him. Where the D-tackle stuff, I think it's still a major work in progress. And I just wonder what he is going to do, because you look at Scorton and we talked about Stewart last week. Both of those guys lost a good amount of weight going into the combine. Scorton didn't do anything, but he lost about like 20 something pounds, 25 pounds going into like sub 260 after playing at over 280. Turner, his playing weight seems to be 300. At the combine, he weighed 290. So I don't know if there's a real like I'm going to be a D tackle kind of thing with him where he wants to be that, but I don't know, man. He's an interesting player. All these A&M like D-Lineman guys, I just you want to gamble on the athlete because I think the athlete's in there, but overall it's tough. Did you have Turner ranked?
I did not. So I
Okay.
only did a top 8. That being said, I did watch plenty of Shamar Turner, watching Scorton and Stewart there. It's tough. For me, I think the size, obviously, it muddies up the water a little bit. But when you read those snap counts, it's exactly what I thought. He views, like, yes, he's a quote-unquote defensive tackle for me. For me, he's a very scheme-specific defensive tackle, and that is a 3-4 defensive tackle. Yeah. And I think unless you are a 3-4 team, you should not be drafting this guy because, again, I don't think he flashed enough stuff as like as a 4-3 defensive tackle, and I think he's too heavy at this point to be playing a 4-3 edge. But I think, again, that perfect spot for him is that 3-4 defensive tackle. And as you said, again, it just comes down to just being tantalized by these A&M guys. Their combination of speed, size, athleticism, strength, all three of them have it at this point. It's just a matter of one of them has to work at some point, right? And I wouldn't be shocked if it was Turner getting put in the right situation. So it sounds like you didn't have Desmond Watson ranked. I'm kidding. That was I had saw in a tweet about Desmond Watson. For those who aren't familiar, I'd be shocked if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know who he is. But that's Florida defensive tackle. He's like 425 pounds. And he ran like a 4 or a 5, like 6'9" or something. Like he ran like a crazy slow time. But then I saw like a sports scientist say the same amount of kinetic energy that went into him running that super slow time at 424 pounds is the same equivalent to a linebacker at 240 running a 3.340, which is crazy. I don't know if it's true. I don't know how they got that calculation.
That's awesome.
But that's absolutely monstrous. But yes, no, I like Smart Turner. Desmond is going to be fun UDFA. He's going to be a tush push stopper if we see the tush push this year. Um, that being said, I guess we can start out at 8 for me. That's going to be Darius Alexander. For this entire time, for some reason, I kept calling him Bear Alexander, and obviously I knew he wasn't Bear Alexander, but I just was so inclined to do it. So I'm glad I said Darius. Um, he is the defensive tackle out of Toledo. Again, he's an older guy in this class. He's the oldest guy I have ranked on this list for the defensive tackle list. He's 25 years old. He's played 6 years at college now at this point. But he has very good size. He's 6'4", has 34-inch arms. And he does a good job setting out a wide base within his legs and just absolutely dominating and feasting at the line of scrimmage. It is hard to move this guy off of his spot, and he is just powerful, big, and just will not budge. And that power translates very well into a good bull rush move. Again, that being said, he's just old. He's an older guy for the draft at the age of 24. And there are just a lot of inconsistencies in his game. And that's the best way I can describe his cons just in general. He has an inconsistent motor. There are times where he has the best motor on the field, and there are times where he looks like he doesn't even want to be out there. He's very inconsistent off the snap. There are some times where he is firing out right as that snap goes, quick, gets his first steps, establishes that contact. And there are times where that ball is snapped and it takes him what feels to be like 5 seconds to get off that line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the leverage as well, sometimes he seems to have a very good understanding of how to use his leverage at 6'4" and get underneath those pads. But quite often he did not at his size, and he got abused because he was a bigger defensive tackle, and these smaller guards and centers were really able to get underneath his pads and use their natural leverage. But again, I just think he is a defensive tackle that really understands how to use his size and power to dominate the line of scrimmage and has some semblance of a pass rush with his bull rush move.
I have Alexander at 7, just one spot over you. I completely agree. His calling card is length, frame, and power. The point of attack strength shows up in the run game for me. Has really active hands in one-on-ones in the run game. The bull rush, you mentioned it, has the bull rush power in the pass game. And I don't know if you noticed this at the Senior Bowl, he was flashing a nice swim move, something that like he was kind of showing off. And then last thing was great production. The last 2 years at Toledo, 83 pressures, 11 sacks, and 50 run stops, and he played over 1,300 snaps according to PFF. That's a guy who doesn't come off the field, and even if he's an older player, I mean, I think the defensive tackle, as I've done this more for certain positions, defensive tackle continues to be a floor position for me, where it's like I'm not really chasing the upside as, a quarterback or a receiver because I'm not looking for an all-pro. I'm just looking for a starter, looking for a guy who's going to rotate in and out, and I think Darius Alexander provides all of that floor for me with his pros. His cons were pretty simple. Like, he wasn't explosive off the ball for what his athletic numbers say for me. Doesn't have a true counter plan when the first engagement doesn't go well. That kind of plays into your point earlier. The agility and foot skills weren't desirable, and the overall the way he strides out, watching him in open space, he's a long strider, and then he'll overthink rushes and get caught up early and just swallowed up and dead rep, So, but yeah, Darius Alexander, he's a fascinating player because he is so old, and he kind of rose himself through the process. The Senior Bowl really kind of encapsulated a stock for him. I feel like once the Senior Bowl happened and he played, or should just showed up as well as he did, I think it grew a lot of stock for him. So, yeah, man, Darius Alexander without a doubt was one of the top 8 for me.
There you go. Who's your number 8? And might as well do your number 7 because.
Yeah, I have TJ Sanders at out of South Carolina at 8. The pros, pretty, he has explosive get off leading to quick penetration. Hand usage is a plus in terms of how violent and active that can be in the run game and even in the pass game when rushing the passer. The upper body power helped him in shed opportunities, and then flexible alignment due to like he's a well size he has a well sized stature, maybe not nose, but just kind of moving all around into different looks like three tech and things like that. The cons, not an overly agile or skilled mover as his get off might lead for me. It'll hurt his upside in stunt and slant tendency schemes, things like that. Pad level is inconsistent and will get swallowed up in doubles and down blocks. And lastly, can get flat-footed at contact, and it'll get him to a halt, and it slows his speed to power off the line of scrimmage. But yeah, T.J. Sanders at 8 for me.
Yes, I had TJ Sanders all the way at 6. Again, for a reminder, I had Omar Norman Lott at 7 for me. Again, you pretty much encapsulated everything. The two things that I'd like to add within that pro bucket is he did show to have some good pass rushing moves. Obviously, he doesn't have a super deep bag, but I really liked his swipe and rip moves. They're very, very good. And then within those cons, the other thing, and I had cut out a little bit, so you might have mentioned it, but man, this dude struggled taking on double teams. It seemed like every single double team that he had gotten, he got washed out of the play. He could not drop his anchor, sit into those double teams, and stand his ground. It seemed, again, every double team this guy took on, he was getting washed out of the play. But yeah, I mean, you basically encapsulated it for me, and he was number 6 for me. So,
who's your number 8?
My number 8 was Darius Alexander.
Okay. So, all right. So now we're to my 6 because you had TJ at 6.
Yes.
Okay.
Really quickly, I would like to make a guess that our number 5 are going to be spitting images of each other outside of 2 players that we're going to have flipped at 3 and 4. And then other than that, I think our top 5 is going to be the exact same. And that's my prediction for this pod. But I'll let you get into your number 6 here.
Oh, absolutely. Are you saying like the top 5 stand out from the rest?
I think the top 5 stand out from the rest, but I think we'll have them ordered the exact same as well outside of 3 and 4 being flipped.
Okay.
But yes, the top 5 are definitely better than the rest. There's a bit of a drop off after the top 5.
Yeah, 6. So. I my guy Alfred Collins out of Texas. The pros, length, frame, and powerful, like very similar to Darius Alexander. The point of attack play strength is the calling card. Keeps his feet moving into contact and has real upper body power. Violent hands in the run shed game, gets off blocks in a hurry and does it with technique and coordination and just strength in his hands. Flashes the long arm moves in the pass game and has desired measurements and power in it to be a real winner at the next level. The cons, not explosive off the ball, which can really hurt his effectiveness of a winning bull rush. Will try and overcreate, in quotations for myself, kind of like Alexander, where it's just like we're overthinking, get into the rep, and it's just like you're trying to make everything perfect. So that's something that like sometimes he just tries to throw the guard off and it doesn't work and it's overthinking, and I think the NFL can hopefully simplify that for him. And then the motor and the plan will need to show up more to be an effective starter. And then lastly, he was a 5-year player and a contributor, had 250 plus snaps every single season, but didn't have a true calling card year of production in the pass game. I don't think he ever had a season where he had more than 25 pressures and more than like 5-ish sacks. So the pass rush production was not there for him overall. But again, like I said with Alexander, it's just a floor position, and his body type, his traits, and like the age into it. This is a guy that later of the 3rd round, it's like we just want to get another floor raiser in the building that can play football. I think Alf Collins fits that bill.
Yes, so he was the last guy. I knew there was one guy on here that I did not have ranked that you did. and that was that last guy. I just didn't get a chance to getting around to writing a full eval on both defensive tackles there out of Texas, because I like them both. Both are going to be drafted, I think, within the first 5 rounds at that point. That being said, the one question I have for you is, what in the world are they feeding those hog mollies down there in Austin? How do you guys go from Tavondre Sweat to Alfred Collins? And obviously, Alfred Collins has been in there, again, for the 5 years and everything. But it seemed like a fairly seamless transition from Tavondre Sweat to Alfred Collins. And then you get to the opposite side of the football where you guys are consistently producing high-quality offensive linemen. I don't know what Texas is feeding them, but my Lord, it is absolutely ridiculous.
Listen, for my sake, I know he wasn't with Texas this past year, but Bo Davis, he went to LSU from Texas, and now he went from LSU to the New Orleans Saints. I'm hoping it's Bo Davis, personally, and he's just this awesome defensive line coach because I completely agree with you. I've been spoiled across the defensive line with the University of Texas the last few years. I mean, they just keep spitting great players out, and they're going to keep spitting great players out.
Yes, Bo Davis is a solid feller himself as well. That being said, we'll go ahead and get into our top fives. I would be shocked if again, our 5 was not the exact same. Did you have Tyleik Williams at 5?
I did.
Okay, so we will be the same. So Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State is going to be my number 5. And as you had mentioned previously, when it comes to high floor guys, Tyleik Williams is the textbook definition of high floor guy. Again, he's going to step in and immediately just be, at the bare minimum, a very, very good run defender within the league. He has very good upper body strength. For his size, he actually showed some pretty good athleticism, and then has that good anchor. No shock that, again, that these big run-stopping defensive tackles show these really good anchors. And he really understood that natural leverage. Unlike a guy like Darius Alexander, he understood how to get underneath the pads and kind of keep his ground. That being said, again, he has that high floor. I don't know how much of that high ceiling he's going to be able to project when it comes to the next level, just because there seems to be almost no pass rushing upside outside of a strong bull rush. And sometimes that did not even work out very well for him. And then he's just a smaller guy, and he has smaller arms. I don't have his arms listed here.
32 inches.
Which isn't the worst in the world, but we're being nitpicky. And again, I just think he's smaller, has a little bit smaller arm length, and again, he just lacks that pass rush upside that you would want from taking a defensive tackle within the top 32 picks. But we have seen it before. I mean, Mazi was, I think he was like the 22nd pick, maybe the 21st pick, and he showed absolutely no pass rush upside, and he was still able to get away with it. And I would not be at all shocked if he finds his way sneaking into the back end of the first round here, especially with a team like the Bills or whatnot.
Yeah, Tyleik Williams, again, like the way you said, I have him at a size explosive and powerful to be an awesome nose tackle. And whatever you believe a nose tackle can be drafted, I think he has all the upside to be a fantastic nose tackle, maybe not a 3-tech, but just overall, just a space eater. I think I'm really high on Tyleik Williams. I don't know, like, before, like, prefacing this, did we get any, like, update? I should have looked into this. Update about, like, what happened at his pro day? Because I know he kind of fell.
I know he hurt himself, yeah.
Yeah, I know he
fell. I can look into it.
All right. Well, I'll keep going, and then we'll figure it out. But yeah, run defense is his calling card. Gives up little ground due to the size and frame, and flashes the hand violence and activity in run sheds. I thought he had some pass rush stuff in his pocket. I liked what he flashed a swim move. He flashed the ability of a rip move. Didn't do it often, but showing that ability for me was something that I appreciated. He's a good leverage winner. I think he really showed off the anchor base in these sets, getting underneath you and really just standing ground. And then lastly, his production. He had 73 pressures, 13 sacks, and 81 run stops in his entire 4-year career at Ohio State. Contributed every single season. He started the past 2 seasons and was rotational player in the first two, and had 1,100 snaps specifically at nose tackle according to PFF. I thought that was interesting. I think they're already prepping him for what he would be desired at the next level. And then cons, the arm length is mediocre at 32 inches, which can limit the ceiling as a pass rusher in the counter pass rush department specifically for me. Off the ball, he is tall and loses the pad level game quickly. It leads to guys getting into him with their punch in the protection game. And then lastly, needs to be more dominant
Mm.
in the double team department. He'll lose his ground even for how big and just wide he is. He'll get stumped in combo blocks. So that's something to work on. But overall, I like Tyleik Williams.
Yes, Tyleik Williams was one of the bigger surprises for me watching him. Again, I knew I had a good idea that he was going to slot in at 5, but I did not expect to like him as much as I did. Moving on to prospect 4, this is where I think 4 and 5 are going to be flipped for us. I could be wrong, and maybe I'm pleasantly surprised by this.
I mean, 3 and 4?
Yeah, 3 and 4. I think we're gonna have flopped or switched. Really quickly before I do that, yeah, Tyleik Williams has been no official update on him, but he pulled his or people suspect that he pulled his hamstring. Again, he had gotten hurt at his pro day, and then came back out with just a wrapped hamstring. So people just expect he might have pulled it or tweaked it, but nothing to a larger concern or extent. Especially for a guy that doesn't rely too much on movement ability. So, number 4 for me, it's one Derek Harmon out of Oregon, and we'll see. Maybe my prediction was right, but I think Derek Harmon offers good size while showing a wide range of pass rush moves. He's very explosive for his size. And this year he had shown what his pass rush upside can look like. And then in previous years at Michigan State, he had shown a very good ability to be a good run defender. It didn't show up as much on tape this year when he was at Oregon. He kind of flipped his pass rush versus run defense, but he had shown the ability in both categories to do good at a high level. That being said, when it talks about guys converting pressures into sacks, he really struggled with that. He, I think, only had 1 year where he had 5 sacks, which was this year, and then previously wasn't even close to that. But he was consistently getting pressure on the quarterback, but for some reason or another, he was never really able to convert that pressure again into that sack. But who knows what the cost for that could be. I think he, while is a good athlete and is explosive, I think he's very stiff. I think he has stiff hips, which leads to a poor lateral quickness. But overall, I think Derek Harmon showed the ability to be good against the run and has broken out as a pass rusher. Hopefully that continues to translate, and he's on that upward trajectory, and showed the ability to play all 3 downs at least at a good level, if not maybe a better level in the coming years.
Yeah, you were absolutely right. I have Derek Harmon at 3.
Bang.
Pros pretty easily. He looks the part in every facet. Phenomenal size, weight, and length, blended with the off-the-ball explosion and speed for me. Has a finely tuned pass rush bag of moves, standout bull rush, go-to rip move, like truly winning maneuvers that I saw at the collegiate level will translate to the NFL level, where sometimes you get a look at some of these moves and it's like, that's not going to work at the next level. But I think he's got 2 moves that could really win at the next level. He's heavy-handed with a noticeable motor and sturdiness in the run game against doubles and shed opportunities. I thought he was just overall just a looks the part prospect at D tackle, as I was mentioning before with the floor stuff. Like he looks the part and really just has the moves, has the motor, everything you would ask for. The production, you mentioned it. The production early in his career was bad, to not good, and then at Oregon, it's an extreme turn. 55 pressures and 25 run stops this season in 2024. They played extra games. They played the conference championship. They played the game in the Rose Bowl. So that maybe sways some stats, but still, 55 pressures in a collegiate season is very, very impressive. The cons with Harmon, pretty. You kind of mentioned all of them. Not an overwhelming athlete. It limits him in a slant or stunt filled scheme, noticeably stiff in open field when you're getting into that stuff. Inconsistent as a finisher. I quoted here, like, he does the hard part well, but struggles in the easy department. Like, just the 55 pressures are a good thing, but I don't have the number in front of me, but it was like 5 sacks. Like, you
Yeah.
need to start committing and putting those into sack numbers, into losses. And then lastly, the feet will get stuck and predictable into games, and it'll lead to reps just not being able to have a second gear rush because he's swallowed up and just mirrored pretty easily later into games. So yeah, Derek Harmon at 3. I think it's just, again, he's another one of those low floor players that someone's just gonna someone's gonna take in the 20s just because they're kind of like, hey, we can throw this guy out immediately. He can do both. He's got a pass rush move, and he's sturdy in the run game. So that's my Derek Harmon kind of piece.
There you go. Who I'm thinking is probably your number 4.
Hmm.
Is it Kenny Grant?
It is, yes.
All right, so it's correct. Do you want to get into Kenny Grant as your number 4? He's my number 3.
All right. Yeah, pretty easily. The pros: size, athleticism, movement skills, all just like Tyreek Williams in its own little different way to be an awesome nose tackle. He's powerful in spurts, noticeably in two gapping and finding and just blowing up doubles. He's massive, huge guy, like 330 something pounds. He has active and live hands in shed opportunities. The motor flashes in the way he penetrates and sheds, and then production was fascinating. 2 seasons as a starter, had 50 total pressures and 39 run stops on 950 total snaps. So this guy was wrecking havoc. Uh, while only 280 of those 950 snaps coming as a true nose tackle, and 650 coming up lined up as a defensive tackle. So in the Michigan scheme, he was more of a three tech player with a nose tackle body because that athleticism and just movement skills were so overwhelming. They just put him next to Mason Graham and said, go get the passer. And they kind of flip flopped the nose and things like that. But yeah, man, like, just that was fascinating to read about and then to just watch, is that, like, there's real chops. He could be just a three tech penetrator instead of this pigeonholed nose tackle because he's so wide and huge. But yeah, the cons: get off was inconsistent for me and not overly explosive as a dominant one phase winner off the ball. Raw hand usage as a pass rusher limits his production and the way he wins. Right now, he's just dependent on the physical traits, the power, the speed, and then lastly, can get knocked off his spot and lose balance due to playing tight and stiff into his base because he is such a big man. But yeah, I have no problem with Kenny Grant. I would probably, like, oh man, it's just how high would you take a nose tackle with him and Tyreek Williams? Kind of like, how early would someone take him in the first round? I think someone would want to gamble on his traits because I think there is a world where he is like I mentioned, an interior penetrating three tech, and Tyreek is pigeonholed as a nose tackle, and there's more fun to be gained going after Kenny Grant than there is Tyreek Williams at this point.
Exactly. That's the big thing that had separated me between Kenny Grant and Tyreek Williams is his ability to play both that nose tackle, but then also that true defensive tackle position as well. Um, I mean, you basically said it all. I think that has the build to absolutely be that true nose tackle that you'd be looking for in certain schemes, but then also has the flexibility to just play defensive tackle if you want to. That being said, it is hard to move this guy off of his spot because he is just beef. He is a very, very good size, we'll say. As you said, he is very athletic for his size. It is almost jarring and shocking at times. I like to call everyone's attention to that play where he ran down Kayvon Allen to stop like this like breakaway touchdown, and you're like, this guy is moving. There's no reason that a 340-pound nose tackle should be chasing down a running back, given it was Kaytron Allen. We'll get into him next year. That's besides the point. Again, very, very athletic, and I think his testing numbers would have shown that if he was able to test. They ended up, I think, like tweaking an ankle or something right before the combine. But then with that nose tackle and again being beefy and not being moved off of his spot, he does a good job controlling his blockers, getting his hands in, and being kind of the aggressor per se when it comes to the blocking, and kind of being able to control them, put them in either gap that he wants to, because he can two gap, and then be able to shed them as well. And then he did a very good job of getting his hands up and again blocking those passes. There's plenty of times that I had seen him do that over the last 2 years. That being said, I don't think he consistently wins as a pass rusher. And as a big guy, he loses his balance a little bit more than what I would like. And then there are weight concerns about him. It kind of goes a little bit back to that Jordan Davis stuff. There were times back at Michigan where this guy was like being weighed in at like 365, 370 pounds. And you're like, that's probably not good. But again, he weighed in at 30 at the combine. But there's that weight fluctuation with him. But yeah, you basically see him as similar as you can. Number 2, Walter Nolan. So much fun. The Ole Miss product had spent the first 2 years at Texas A&M. Surprise, didn't really have a whole lot of pass rushing props when he was at A&M. Then comes over to Ole Miss this year and kind of shows what he can do as a pass rusher. Again, I think that's just a lot more of what A&M is asking their defensive linemen rather than what the players can actually do. I think he's a very good athlete. He's very twitchy, very explosive, plays with violent hands, and has very good stamina. He seems like he is on the play, or he seems like he's playing 95% of the snaps. Obviously, that's not the case, but he's in the game at all times at this point. And he flashed pass rush move. And emphasis on flash. I don't think he was ever able to do it at a consistent level, or at least show it consistently, but he showed the ability to do so. For the cons, I think he stands up very quickly and gets upright more than what you would like. I think he plays lighter than what he actually is. I think his weigh-in, he weighed in just fine, but there were too many times, again, that he looked light. He was getting moved off his spot way easier than what you would think. And then I think he allows his the opposition, the offensive line's hands in his chest way more than what you would like. He's losing that hand fight more than what you'd like to see on tape. But I think he's just a very switched up athlete at the defensive tackle position who can develop into being a very good pass rusher.
Yeah, Walter Nolan easily for me was number 2. In my first pro was in like all caps, explosive athlete off the ball. Truly, truly dangerous first step leads to I think you put him in a slant stunt kind of tendency scheme. I think he's going to excel as a pass rusher. Has violent and active hands in both the pass and run game, as you mentioned. Flashes the hands and shed opportunities in the run, and the motor in the hands in the pass. Just overall, he's always moving through his arms and his hands and his just overall body. Uh, has two winners in the pass rush department for what I can see in his swim and rip. And then the production. It traveled to Ole Miss, 35 pressures, 32 run stops in 2024 alone. True junior, by the way. Cons, you mentioned it. Like the weight was fine, but he's overall light for the position, and it shows on tape. And the power and just the play strength department, the way he gets maneuvered off spot easily in the run game. The size, like I mentioned here, gets him hurt in the run game. Doesn't shed properly for the position in double teams or two gapping. Has the frame to put on extra weight, but it could hinder the pass rush. Could hinder the athletics. So you're kind of like living in this world where is this the Walter Nolan we have? And that's a really efficient pass rusher in my opinion. So I wouldn't mess with it too much. And then fine to mediocre arm length leads to some overextension into creating dead reps. So, but overall, Walter Nolan was easy for me. I think he like it's the way the defensive tackles was interesting. Is like they all just slowly separate themselves. Like I think Walter Nolan is pretty easily higher than my 3, 4, and 5, where my 1 through 5 are all pretty easily over my 6. So yeah, Walter Nolan was easy.
Yes, I agree. And then the last one, to no one's surprise, well, maybe to some people's surprise at this point, that's Mason Graham. I almost said Mason. Almost messed up his name there. Anyways, Mason Graham. And before we get into all of this, as of the last couple weeks, I think since the combine, there has been a lot of people kind of dropping him down their board because of his size, but he had played at this size throughout his entire career. I don't think it matters. What you see on tape is what he is playing at, and that's going to project very well. So for people to go in and again give him that quote unquote double negative, saying, "Oh, he's small," and then have him weigh in and be small, and be like, "Oh, well, now we have to drop him down even more because he's small." It's just absolutely ridiculous to me. That being said, we'll get into Mason Graham. Absolutely love Mason Graham as a Michigan fan. A very good pass rusher. Clearly the best pass rusher out of anyone in this entire class, in my opinion. Again, has an arsenal of pass rush moves. With his bull rush, his chop seems to be his go-to move in his swim. He has a very good first quick step. And just as I talked about with Kenny Grant, he does a good job of pulling blockers. And then he just has a hot load. His motor is always as I just talked about. And he weighs, I think he weighed it at like 8, something like that. His arm, I think, was 31, 3/8 or something. It was a crazy fraction like that. He didn't crack into that 32-inch arm length. So he's just a smaller guy, smaller stature, smaller arms. I think he plays with a higher pad level than what you would like with a small guy. And then I think he has to win at the start. It's very hard, and I did not see it often, that he does not win and then recovers and continues to make that play. If he doesn't win, that play is just over for him. You can go ahead and skip to the next play because he's not going to make a play after he loses. But again, I think he is by far the best pass rusher in this class. Very good 3-tech, and he shows the ability to be strong against the run despite his size concerns.
Yeah, Mason Graham was my number one. You cut out a little in and out there, so I want to make sure I didn't miss anything from you. But yeah, the pros. He was a high floor athlete, no major deficiencies, and he had really good balance. The motor was noticeable in a great way and has violent hands in the pass game. Great discipline in the run game. Keeps eyes on target and can shed blocks pretty quickly in the run game. He had versatility across the line of scrimmage. He can be a two gap penetrator. He can be a lineup three tech for you. Just overall, he can move around the line and play where desired. Uh, Production again was a plus 63 interior D-line pressures mixed with 58 run stops the last 2 seasons according to BFF. And then the cons, like the cons were small, small arms mixed with fine play strength, and it's gonna be maybe a ceiling limiter, but I think he can still beef up overall. Like, he wasn't overly quick or explosive off the ball, but he is laterally smooth for me. And then lastly, like this kind of plays into the pass rush thing where it's like he is a jack of all trades, master of none kind of in the pass rush move department for me at this moment. Him flashing all those things is a plus, but is there a winning maneuver for him just yet? Maybe, maybe not to be like a consistent sack finisher, a consistent sack producer. He has a nice swim move. He's the natural wrestler, leverage, has the bull rush behind him when he gets you off balance, but overall needs to develop a winning maneuver to be a consistent sack winner for me. But yeah, Mason Graham is a pretty easy eval. I think he's a top 7 player pretty easily. I think he's going to go in the top 7 picks. Uh, just don't want to. I don't want to overthink this player because I feel like we do a lot. And again, it's one of those positions, IDL, that I think he's walking in the building, a good player with a good floor set underneath him, and he's going to start for a long time in the NFL because of that.
Absolutely. He, with his stock, he kind of seems like the Tedero McMillan on the defensive end of the ball, where people are maybe overthinking what they're watching on tape just a little bit. But yes, that was defensive tackle. I'm going to run through my 8-1 for you guys really quickly before we move on to the next position group. That's Darius Alexander at 8, Omar Norman Lott at 7, TJ Sanders at 6, Tyleek Williams at 5, Derek Harmon at 4, Kenny Grant at 3, Walter Nolan at 2, and Mason Graham at 1.
All right, I'll run through 10. I'll run through my 10. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland at 10, Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M at 9, TJ Sanders out of South Carolina at 8, Darius Alexander out of Toledo at 7, Alfred Collins out of Hook'em Horns, Texas at 6, Tyleek Williams out of Ohio State at 5, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan at 4, Derek Harmon out of Oregon at 3, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss at 2, and Mason Graham out of Michigan lastly at 1.
Go Blue.